Welcome to our podcast, Michelle and Stacey, all things small business.
We hope you enjoy this episode and please visit our website, michelleandstacey.com.au.
That's MICHELLEANDSTACEY.com.au. We would love to hear from you.
Welcome to episode 3 with Michelle and Stacey, talking all things small business.
Yes, that's right, Stace. So hopefully you've enjoyed our other 2 episodes. Today, what are we going to talk about, Stace?
The purchaser and why they're important.
Yeah. Well, I think the main reasons that they're important is, first of all, you've got to work out whether they're capable of running your business. I mean, your business has been, I would assume, your baby, and you're not going to just give it to anyone. I guess it's like if you've got a daughter and, the boyfriend comes home, is he going to be good enough for the daughter type of thing? So
that's a great analogy.
Yeah. So you really work out whether they're capable of doing that. The second thing is, why do you want to understand the purchaser? You want to understand what's their motivation for buying your business, because that's going to help you through the process of going through it as well. And then lastly is, can they pay? And how are they going to pay? Because a lot of people might have these wonderful ideas and they want to buy a business and they're all talk, get down to it, they can't afford it. So you want to find out that pretty quickly before they waste a lot of your time. So
absolutely. Your time is just as valuable as getting paid for your business.
Exactly. So we're just going to delve into those areas a little bit deeper in each one of those. So do you want to start off, Stacey, on working out how someone's capable? And really, I guess that's really, trying to get to know the person.
Absolutely. So we really want to get to know the purchaser. First impressions mean a lot. And I don't know what you think, Michelle, but first impressions are often you make those in the first few seconds or,
sometimes so, but sometimes people are quite quiet and I don't know whether that's always the case, because someone might be all bluff and they might come in and say stuff and think, oh, they're quite impressive, but when you dig down, they're not so impressive. And then on the flip side, you might have someone who doesn't say anything, you're thinking, oh God, but then when you actually draw them out, they're really calculated, they really understand things and they analyse stuff before they talk. So yes, a lot of the time first impressions is really good, but sometimes the first impression is not necessarily the right impression. So, that's why it's really important to try and get to know your potential purchaser. But before we go into that, I guess there's 2 spots. They could be, the purchaser could be someone that's within your business existing, right? So the way you approach that versus if it's someone from outside wanting to buy your business and you don't really know them from a bar of soap. So let's talk about if someone in your business has approached you or, you've to buy your business. You already know them, right?
You do. So you often already know them as a person, their capabilities as well. You know what really motivates them and drives them, something that you often have some indication of what their personal values are. And so how they really align with your business. So hopefully they do line up quite well with your business, given they're already most likely working for you if they're internal to your business. From that point of view, you should be able to tick off those sorts of things in your mind pretty quickly for them.
Yes, that's true, but it's not always necessarily so, because doing a job really well, like one particular job, that responsibility, that can be a little bit misleading sometimes because, they're only focusing on one particular area. And even though they might do that fantastically, it is a bit different to running a business, because running a business is it's a lot more involved in that. And you've got to really make sure that they understand that and they understand the skill set, because they might have in their mind that they could easily do it. They think, oh yeah, well I'm in it, I'm doing this. And they may think that they're actually running it themselves at the moment. But when it comes down to it, it's really the nitty-gritty things that's going to make a good purchaser versus someone who's really not probably up to speed. And by that I mean, how do they cope when there's a lot of stress? Say you lose a major customer or a client and they're gone and you've, lost a big portion of business. How are you going to deal with that? And what's their process for doing that? Or you might have other people coming, like some of the staff might not come in. So, say, for example, you've got 5 staff and, you really need those 5 staff to run the business well. And on one day, 2 of the staff are sick and they're going to be sick for 2 weeks. They've got COVID or something like that. So how are they going to cope with something like, coming up with the solutions on how to keep the business running and how to keep the other employees happy and to keep the clients and everyone and just to keep the business moving? So they're kind of skills that may not necessarily have been tested by someone who's an employee.
Absolutely. They're completely different skill sets, running a business to working in a business.
Yeah.
Completely different skill sets. And sometimes you get to see some of those skill sets on show depending on what these people's roles are and what their responsibilities currently are. And sometimes you don't get to see any of them at all. And sometimes what you do see is that they do work well, what you think under pressure, but it's not really under pressure, because in their mind, they know they don't really have to solve these problems and it doesn't really affect them when they're working for you.
And they could be unrealistic. Like I've had another, one of my clients was approached by someone who works for them, and the first thoughts of them was, oh, they're fantastic, they've done a great job, they're really good with this, they're really good with that. But as it went through the process, they kind of got to the conclusion, and this was after, quite a few months, that my clients came back and said, well, no, I don't actually think that they're suitable. Whereas probably 6 months before, they were really excited and they thought this was going to work. But as you kind of delve through the process of trying to sell your business and working out what are they really capable, that can lead to this point where you find out, no, then I don't even want to sell it to them anymore, which then throws up another issue potentially, because they still are working for you. And if they've been a great employee, you don't necessarily want to get rid of them. So I think one of the main things, if it is an internal person, that you really have to be very upfront in the beginning and saying, if this doesn't work out, it's, we still want you here, and trying to be very clear that this is a process and they may not be successful. Don't kind of lead them on, because you don't want it to turn around, because then you've lost a great employee potentially. So it's trying to set the boundaries up straight away so they're comfortable that if it doesn't go through, that they're not offended, I guess, at the end of the day, and walk away.
Absolutely. And I think we'll probably touch on that in a different aspect when we talk about if the purchase is an external purchaser.
Yeah.
So that's, very good points and rather interesting there, and really good things to consider going in. You don't want to go in blind to this process.
No, that's right. And then what about if it's an external person that you don't really know and they've approached you? I mean, it could be a competitor wants to buy you, so you might have had dealings with them in the past, or it could be just, someone that you don't know at all.
Yeah.
So what do you, or how would you go about trying to work out if it's someone that you don't really know or you don't know them well? What would you do?
Really great question. So I would be doing a lot of research myself as much as possible. Online is an amazing tool that we've got to use these days.
Yeah.
There's a lot of databases and things that you can go looking in to do some research, such as ASIC. You can look up on directors. You can look on social media. You can and when I say social media, this could be them personally, so on like the Facebooks and LinkedIn and all those sorts of things. but it could also be websites and things as well. So having a look, maybe they've got their own podcast, maybe they've got their own online presence for marketing purposes and things, or they've run other businesses previously. And maybe you want to do a bit of digging around in what happened in those businesses. Were they successful? Were they not successful? That'll set you up with some really, really good questions that you can then ask this person when you meet them.
Yeah. And another good way is once you've done your initial assessment, whether, you think it's going to be, it's a really good idea to probably get to know these people in more of a social setting, like outside the business. So, either go out for dinner, go out for coffee, not just once, but a few times, and just try to get to know them as a person. Because realistically, if you've set up your business, you've set it up according to your values, and that's really what you're selling in terms of the value of the business, yeah? So you want to make sure that this purchaser is aligned to your values, because they could destroy it if they're, they're not aligned to the way that you think or you've built your business up. Definitely. So I would be, really trying to get to know them. And it's like, you don't have to really like them. I guess one thing of this process is you don't have to love someone, but you've got to be realistic and say, are they capable of running this business and running it well, right? So they don't have to be your best friend, but because they will do, if they do end up buying it, they're going to do it differently to what you do. So you've got to accept that as well. But you don't want them to be so different that you think it's going to be detrimental to the business. They may be the next person, you were happy to do it to this point in time, and this person might come in and they might grow it, double it, triple it, whatever, and they've got those capabilities, which is different to you. So you've got to take a professional approach, not an emotional approach, whether you like the person or not. It's really just stepping out, going, right, working out how to assess this person. So I think you've picked up on a good point before, is just having a lot of questions. So the better prepared you are, the better, you're going to try and understand. So what kind of questions would you put in before you've gone through and, maybe even going out in a social situation? What would you be putting down to try and work out?
Really great question. Just before I touch on that, I just want to go back to what are the online things that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Don't believe everything that you read or see online.
No.
So as much as you'll note it and, make a note of it and ask them some questions around what you're finding, you need to validate it. So one way to validate it is asking them. Another way is maybe validating it with some referees or references or speaking with other people that they know.
Good point.
Down the track.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I say that is that, there's a lot of stuff on social media that's, misinformation or disinformation. There's also a lot of AI things at the moment too, right? So people can actually create things from real things that are up there, but create fake things from those real things.
Like Trump.
Well, yeah.
It's fake news.
I just don't believe everything you read or see. Just make sure you validate it. It's just a good starting point for your research. I just wanted to, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
That's all. But go back to the question that you'd asked, which was around, what sort of questions would you sort of start compiling, really, like in terms of being able to then ask, when you do have a casual catch up with this potential purchaser. I would start with, there's a whole heap of questions that you can ask, but I think you want to start with things that are just trying to flesh out from them what their values are, what their motivation is, why do they like your business, what, maybe what ideas they've got to do with your business, maybe what's their business background, have they run businesses before, have they run businesses in your industry before, do they work well with people, what's in this for them, what's their vision, what are they seeing, because you might be able to connect on some of that level. I think there's a whole heap there as well to really dive in and investigate with them around what is it that they as a person have as their values and how do they treat other people, for example. So I've heard this not even in buying and selling businesses, just in general as a person, like when you're like maybe looking to employ a person, is you can get a good sense for how they treat other people by taking them to a lunch or a dinner or a coffee or wherever outside and see how they treat, for example, the wait staff that they have, for example, are they respectful to them, or do they treat them as though they're,
lowly second-class citizens.
Exactly. So you can pick up little things like that from from casual interactions with them. So sometimes it's not about the questions you ask, it's about observation and putting them in particular social settings. It could even be you go for a walk around the block and, depending on the people you pass on that walk, do they say hello to them? Do they move themselves onto the grass to let people walk past? Do they, it's how do they conduct themselves in public, because that is part of
the persona,
their persona and their values. If you're passing an elderly person, how do they, maybe maneuver themselves around that person? If you're passing someone in a wheelchair, how do they maneuver themselves around that sort of? So you sort of can pick up on some of these things from observation point of view. So they're probably some of the questions that, or things that I would look for initially. But I think we can probably put together, I reckon, some resources that we would.
But another important thing is, to me, is trying to work out, what's their business acumen and are they capable of running a business, right? So I remember when I was working in corporate before I ran my own business, I went for this one interview and I'll never forget it. And it was like, this was for a financial analyst role. But the person who did employ me actually asked me some very buoyant analytical questions and how I would solve them to check. She wanted to see whether I had an analytical brain or not. So that was not a bad thing to do. And at the time going, but like it was easy because that was what I could do. But you really want to try and have some very specific questions at some point in time. You don't have to bring it straight up, but like just say, look, you can do it in a more casual situation, but just maybe bring up, I've had an issue with this client and, blah, blah, blah. What would you do in that situation, and just see what their reactions would be? Or, we lost, these 5 clients, in the last 6 months because of blah, blah. It's really made a big dent in our business, but I'm kind of, what would you have done in that situation? How would you have either tried to get them back, or how would you have filled the gap, and what would you do? Because that, is going to help you determine whether they're going to make success of this business going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the other one is how I guess willing are they to get their hands dirty? Because I did have another situation with another client, and he was trying to sell their business, and it was it is a very successful business. And this person came from a corporate background. Not that, I've come from a corporate background to run a business, so that's got nothing to do with it. But this one particular person had really probably worked in a corporate background their whole life and was used to having the resources available that you do in a corporate. So usually you're quite specialised when you work in a corporate role, and, you work with really smart people, so you've got lots of resources to go on, but you're only really employed to do a specific role, one specific role within the organisation.
Absolutely. This is a really, really big key point.
Yeah. So as we went along the process, this person was super keen, but obviously the business that was being sold had been reliant on the person who was selling it, going in, even though he had built it to quite a substantial business. When the push came to the shove, he would jump in and do the roles, because he's like, well, otherwise the business stops. Whereas this other person, it became quite evident as we went along through the process over a number of weeks trying to get to know them. They had no idea, or probably didn't really want to do that. So, that would stop a business in its tracks if someone's not prepared to do that. And I guess that comes back to like, how hungry are they for, is it a dream? Is it their dream to have a business and it's just a dream and not reality? Or are they so hungry that they will just go through anything to make it work?
Absolutely. And that's, I think, fundamental to small business. So, yeah, I can't stress that point enough, that is really an important one. And it's finding this right person that's going to roll their sleeves up, do whatever needs to be done. When the going gets tough, get going, right?
Yeah, so you've got to do it. And it's like, at the moment we're watching the Olympics, and I'm sure that those people winning the gold medals, have the utmost hunger to succeed at what they wanted to do, and they were prepared to do anything just about to get to, that gold medal. And so it's the same in business. You've got to be prepared, if you want to be successful, not to have your weekends, be called at, 9 o'clock at night potentially, have to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and prepare for something because you're not well prepared. You can't sleep in, you can't get there at 9, you know what I mean? So that's really, I guess, the hunger to make it work.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't go away, does it?
No, it doesn't go away. Like it might dull off for a while because you've got great systems and processes and people in place, but that might be a week. And then it's like, oh, I've got to do this next thing, or someone's away, oh, that supply didn't deliver this. There's always problems to solve every day.
Yeah.
And, sometimes they're small and, it's not really a big deal, and sometimes they're quite big, and you've just got to jump in and get them done. That's all.
But that's
all
a good
part of it.
point, Stacey. I reckon running a small business is really how good at you are at problem solving.
Problem solving. That's what it is. It's on a daily basis. You are solving problems, and they could be the same problems over and over.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully you've fixed they're not the same problems.
Exactly. But with small business, sometimes they are over and over for a period of time until you've got enough time to really get to them and sort out that process or that system. But you've got to get there. But sometimes they are random, different ones, all the time, which, some of them can be fixed by changing a process and things. Sometimes they're ones that just, well, that's probably one that's going to happen every 10 years. This one time every 10 years, well, we're probably not going to invest too much. As a small business, I'm not going to invest too much in addressing that. So, but it's about identifying that, which ones am I going to be able to focus on and fix? Which ones are just, they're probably not really going to happen that often. And, and how impactful are they? Like how big are they? What's the impact they're having, or what's the risk? So there's a lot of, which I'm sure we'll touch on a lot of these other things in future episodes as well. But this episode's about the purchaser and really figuring out who the purchaser is as a person. Are they the right fit for you? And your business, and can you work with them to transition, and are they going to be able to take on your business? Are they capable of taking that to the next level? So
once you've sorted that out, I think we've kind of covered that, and everyone's different. You work out your own way of doing that, but it is quite important. So then the next thing that I think is important as well is to understand, why do they want to buy your business? So it's great, I'm totally different to Stacey. The next person's totally different. So what's the motivation for it? Is it something like me? I worked in corporate for a long, long time, but I always wanted to run my own business, right? So that was like a driving motivation. And I'm kind of getting to the point that, I'm not far off retiring, but I just want to go because I want to, keep going, and I want to achieve certain things. So it's a total personal goal for me. I'm not really driven by money. Of course, to be successful, you will make money, hopefully, but like money doesn't drive me. So it's not that. It's really just my own personal goals that I wanted to do to motivate me to buy in, to the business that I bought. So really, I think you really want to try and understand that person. And the reason being is that that's going to help you in selling it to them.
Yes, because you've got to, the best way to pitch your business, to get the best price for your business, is to know who your purchaser is and what motivates them. Like, what's the hook for them? You got to get in their mind, and you've got to be able to really articulate your business in their language, right?
So so they get excited about it and they want to buy it. Yeah?
Exactly. And they can then start to visualize it and see what it means to them and how it's going to give them what they want, right? So for some people, this could be that they've already got a successful business and they're wanting to buy your business to bolt it onto theirs. And they're actually just looking for the relationships and the contracts and the revenue streams and things. And the cost side, they're just going to integrate that into their own business and sort it out that way, right? So it's about learning, that's one option. There's many, right? Variants to this. But, maybe another idea is that, they've been working in this industry for years and years for someone else and they can't buy into that person's business, the one that they're already working in. And so instead they want to buy your business and do it themselves. But instead of starting from scratch, they want to do it by buying yours.
Yeah. So that's a good point. But then you try, like, to help you as well, you want to try and ascertain whether, like, how do they think? Because let's face it, everyone thinks quite differently. Like I've got a different way of thinking to a lot of people in terms of, for me, I don't think I'm your typical kind of accountant because I actually don't like doing a lot of the detail, but it's really important to do the detail. But I like the bigger picture type of thing. So is the person that wants to buy it a big picture person, or do they love the detail? Everyone, like some of my clients, just they have to go through every single line and tick it off. And you sit there and it can be, it can take a lot of time to get to the point, but that's the way they think. And for them, there's nothing wrong with it. That's the way they operate. And you've got to be, conscious of that and not get annoyed that they're taking a long time to get to a point that you might get to really quickly. So it's really working out, okay, well, you've got to allow that and you've got to allow that process to happen.
Exactly. And some of these, people might want to be talking to you a lot to really get some comfort for themselves, which is obviously going to eat into a lot of your time. So if you can work out early on, if you think they're a good fit, then you're probably happy to spend them that time to take them on the journey and do that with them. But if you figure out early on that they're not a good fit, well, you've got to cut the ties there and then, right?
Yeah.
So this is why doing this this piece at the start to figure out, are they the right purchaser for your business
is really important.
Really important, because otherwise you're just going to waste a lot of time.
Exactly. So once you've kind of gone through that process and you're kind of feeling, yep, I reckon these people are a bit of a goer, the next important thing before you go to the next step is, can they afford it and how they're going to fund it, right? Exactly. Because you don't want to spend all this time going through everything and then, opening up your business and exposing yourself. 1, it's time consuming. 2, it's confidential information. 3, you could be doing better things than spending time doing this. So you really want to get onto it pretty quick. Are they a cash buyer? Do they have to borrow? If they have to borrow, have they already got approval for the finance? Or do they expect you to fund them purchasing the business? Right? And if they do, like, I always advise against that, because I kind of think, well, you're not a bank, I'm not a bank. But some people are quite happy to fund the business. But if that's the case, you really want to make sure that they're not going to do the runner on you and just default on the loan and you never get your money. So 1, you've lost your business, and 2, you don't get the money. So double whammy, really bad. So I think it's it's pretty much top of the thing for me is if they can afford it.
Absolutely. Because otherwise it just becomes another whole time wasting exercise.
Exactly. Total waste of time. And, like some people say, oh, yeah, I've got cash, I can buy it. And I always go, oh, okay. Like so many times I've gone through trying to sell businesses and they've said, yeah, they're a cash buyer. You go all the way down the track and then all of a sudden the bank's ringing you going, oh, we need this and this information. You go, hang on a minute, I thought you said they were a cash buyer, and now they're trying to get a loan, and now the ball game's changed and it's all totally, It's like, find out really quickly.
Really quickly. And just, I guess, on the flip side there, sometimes they are a cash buyer and they've got cash, but then they get advice from their accountant or their advisor that actually it's a good, because you're buying a business and that would be deductible debt if you went and got a loan, they then decide, actually, I'm going to hold on to my cash and I'm going to get a loan. And so they were a cash buyer and they've got the money.
Yeah, that's okay. But if that's the case, then they should get the loan, right? So it shouldn't be a problem.
It shouldn't be a problem, exactly. And they also should probably come back and tell you that hey, I do have the cash, but I'm just doing this because that would be a better solution for me. So that way when you're getting a phone call from the bank, it's not like, hang on a minute, what? Because you can lose trust in that situation.
Yeah.
So it's really about that open communication is a really big piece as well.
So, I think we've covered the main three things when we're talking about the purchaser. The first one is, what's their capabilities. The second is understanding their motivations for buying it. And the third is, can they pay for it? So the important things to remember during this process to go through all of those three different things is the more prepared you are in terms of being able to sell your business in all these type of things, the better you're going to be and the better the process is going to go.
Absolutely.
Communication as well is really important.
Really, really important. I'd just be, as open and, within reason, transparent as possible. But you don't want to be giving away everything and emptying your undies drawer on day one.
Yeah.
But you just need to be open and transparent about your communication. Like, no one likes surprises.
No.
So, and, giving a surprise to a potential purchaser is probably a really great way to scare them away.
Yeah.
So
and also you might be, like everyone's at different stages in their life and their business, and you might be going, oh, thank God, I just want to get out of it now. And you can see that you're going far, you go, oh, I'm not going to be here in 6 months. This is fantastic. And you get to the point you're quite desperate to sell. You don't want to show that to them at all. And if that's the case, you've got to realise that and you've got to get someone else to maybe negotiate for you or talk. It could be someone else in the family, within your business that's, part of the business, or it could be your accountant or your lawyer or something like that. You really want to communicate well, but you don't want to appear desperate to get rid of it, if that's the case.
Absolutely. There's, I think, a whole other topic that we've got down to do in some future episodes is if the purchaser is actually a family member, that may also be working in the business. So it's like these family businesses, but it's a sort of a whole other topic. So we'll cover that in another episode, but I wanted to acknowledge that here for you.
Yeah, and you've got to remember these things do take time, and because they take time, you want to make sure that time is used efficiently and effectively, and you're not wasting your time, right? Because, that's why you've really got to make up your mind. One, are they going to really buy it? Things can always happen and they can always fall over at any point in time. But if, you haven't gone through this process very quickly up front, you might waste 6 months, and it's really it can be very time consuming.
It can be very time consuming.
And then you go, oh my God, I wish I'd thought about that before, and I could have had all that time back. Either investing in your business or your own business, or just having time off and stuff. Because so I think that is really.
It can also be quite costly too, because like time is money, right? So it's opportunity cost of, as Michelle's just said, like what you could have been spending in your business, the time in your business. But there's also like as you get further down the track, which we'll cover topics in future episodes that you'll see, is that you actually have to start to get some advisors, like third-party people involved to assist you. Yeah. And there's costs involved with that.
Yeah.
So not only your time with that and the time with the purchaser or potential purchaser, there's also the cost that you actually have to pay for, documents and time for these advisors and things as well along the way.
Yeah. And realistically, if you're selling to someone that or someone that's in your kind of friendship circle as well, because that happens a lot of time too, you've got to be prepared to lose a friendship potentially.
Yes, that was the key. When we were talking earlier about internal a potential internal purchaser, and we want to make sure that we don't potentially lose them as a result of this if we don't proceed with selling to them. That was exactly where I was going. Likewise, if it's an external purchaser and
that
it's
you
a
happen
friend,
to know, so you've got to try and do it that it could end up that you may lose this, so you've got to be well prepared for that as well. So
that's a very very key point. And so I think it's also important while you're going through this process, this business is probably one of your largest assets, right? It could be your largest asset, or it could be one of, and you've spent years and years and years building this up, and it's worth a lot to you. You've spent most of probably your waking hours working on it and working with the people in it, and you building it up. You'll be emotionally attached to it. Even if you think you're not, as you start talking to people about selling it and then they'll be asking you, no doubt it'll come up, what's the history of this business? How did it start? It'll become quite emotional for you. And so I think it's just important to acknowledge that now and acknowledge that along the way, because if and when it does, and I say if and when because it's more like when rather than if, that comes up for you, you've got to really then reach out and get some support from people, because that's when, if your emotion starts coming into this deal when you're negotiating, that can actually potentially not get you the best value, and it could even end up going a little bit pear-shaped. So it's just important to keep that in mind.
All right. Well, I think we've covered a fair bit today, so hopefully that's been beneficial. Just talking about the purchaser and all the different things about what you need to think about when someone approaches you, or if you decide to sell these are the things that I certainly would be thinking about, and what I encourage people to think about.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for the chat today, Michelle.
Thank you, and hopefully you'll hear us again soon. See you later.
See you. Bye. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope you found it informative and useful. We would like to clarify that this podcast is for educational purposes only. The conversations are of a general nature and do not qualify or constitute as financial or tax advice. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect any official stance. We make no guarantees about the accuracy, reliability, or completeness of the information presented, and are not liable for any losses or damages arising from its use. We recommend you seek the advice of your own legal, financial, or other licensed professional before making any decisions based on the information provided in this podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and tune in again soon to listen to further episodes.